The darkness outside the glass walls was no longer a simple void. It was alive, teeming with a focused malevolence. The glowing eyes, suspended in the night like the embers of an invisible fire, were not just watching. They were waiting. Charlotte and Mia backed away from the window, their hearts hammering in the same terrified rhythm. The house, their sanctuary, had become a besieged island, and the ocean surrounding it was a tangible nightmare. Charlotte's first act was almost reflexive. She carefully placed the black obsidian heart back into its lead-lined box, closed the lid, and wrapped it in the old oilcloth. A futile attempt to put the genie back in the bottle, to hide its scent from the hounds outside. She secreted the box back in the hollow space behind the hearth and tried to shove the cornerstone back into place. It wouldn't fit perfectly, leaving a small, jagged crack, a permanent reminder of the secret it concealed. What are we going to do? Mia's voice broke, the bravery of the past hours dissolving in the face of the watching eyes. I don't know, Charlotte admitted, and the words carried the full weight of their situation. For the first time in her life, she had no plan, no list, no logical path to follow. She was operating on pure, frayed instinct. But we can't stay still. We have 24 hours. Julian's deadline now hung over them like the blade of a guillotine. They retreated to the kitchen, the only room where the light felt strong enough to hold back the encroaching shadows. The oak dining table, where they once had silent family dinners, was now their war council table. The debate began almost immediately, fueled by fear and exhaustion. It wasn't an argument like before, but a desperate tug of war between two impossible options. We have to give it to him, Charlotte said, her voice frighteningly level, a calmness born of absolute panic. We find the stone again, wait for morning, and we call him. We arrange a trade. We give him what he wants, and he leaves us alone. Leaves us alone. Do you really believe that? Mia countered, her eyes flashing. You read the warning. That thing is a prison. Julian doesn't want a pretty rock. He wants to let out whatever is locked inside it. Do you have any idea what that means? We wouldn't just be handing a thug a piece of jewelry. We'd be opening the door to hell. And what's the alternative, Mia? Charlotte shot back, her palms smacking the table. We sit here and wait for Julian's men to break down the door and kill us for it, or we wait for the things out there to decide to come inside and play. Julian's hell is a maybe. Our death is a certainty. I'll take the maybe. That's cowardly. It's survival, Charlotte yelled, her voice breaking with the strain. I am your mother, and my job is to keep you alive. If that means making a deal with the devil, then I will make it. Your father tried to hide it, and look what it got him. He's dead, alone in a wrecked car. The cruelty of her words silenced them both. Charlotte turned away, covering her mouth, horrified at what she had said. Mia flinched back, her face white with pain. I'm sorry, Charlotte whispered. I didn't mean that. No, maybe you're right, Mia said, her voice hollow. Maybe trying to do the right thing just gets you killed. Maybe Dad was wrong to try and protect it. The despair in her daughter's voice was more frightening than her anger. Charlotte realized they were being backed into a corner, not just by the forces outside, but by their own lack of information. They were making life or death decisions in the dark. No, Charlotte said decisively. We're not giving it to him. And we are not dying here. There has to be a third option. There has to be another way. She went to the pile of Ethan's research, her brain clinging to the only actionable task available. Learn more. That warning, she said, thinking aloud. It was written by someone in the cult. Someone who knew what that thing was. The history book. It cited the journal of a man named Ebenezer Thorne. Someone who studied them. Maybe he knew more. They spent the next hour on the house's flickering internet connection, They searched for Ebenezer Thorne, Maple Creek. Most of the results were vague historical documents. But then they found it. An old article from the local paper about the centennial celebration of the Maple Creek Historical Society. The article featured a photo of the keynote speaker, Mr. Alistair Thorne, Professor Emeritus of History at Yale University and great-grand-nephew of the Society's founder, Ebenezer Thorne. Charlotte's heart leapt. A living descendant, a historian. There was an online directory, and after 10 tense minutes of searching, they found it. A. Thorne, with an address in New Canaan, a town less than 30 minutes away. Now came another decision. To call a complete stranger in the middle of the night to ask about a 19th century cult and a cursed rock. It was insane, but insanity was their only option. Charlotte dialed the number, her hand shaking so badly, it took 3 tries. The phone rang 4 times, and she had almost given up when a gravelly old voice answered. "Hello? Hello? May I please speak with Mr. Alistair Thorne?" Charlotte said, forcing her voice to sound normal. "Who's calling?" the voice grumbled. "You know what time it is? I'm so sorry to disturb you this late. My name is Charlotte Ashworth. My late husband, Ethan Ashworth, was an amateur historian, and he greatly admired the work of your great-granduncle Ebenezer." There was a silence on the other end. Ebenezer. That's a name I don't hear often. "What do you want, Mrs. Ashworth?" "My husband. He was particularly interested in Ebenezer's research on local folklore, specifically on a group called the Scorpion Cult." The silence this time was longer, and when Thorne spoke again, the grumpiness was gone from his voice, replaced by a cold caution. "That is a dark chapter, madam. One best left buried." "I'm afraid I don't have that choice," Charlotte said, desperation leaking into her voice. "We're living in the old Milleridge house, on the hilltop." She heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "Good heavens," the old man whispered. "So, it's begun again." He paused. "What have you found in that house?" "I can't say over the phone," Charlotte said. "But we're in terrible trouble. We need your help." Alistair Thorne was quiet for a long time. "Tomorrow morning," he said finally. 8 o'clock. The Blue Plate Diner in Darien. Come alone, or only with someone you trust absolutely. Do not bring anything with you, and for God's sake, be certain you are not followed. He hung up, leaving Charlotte with a dangerous sliver of hope and an impossible task: to escape the siege. The plan was hashed out in desperate whispers. They would not take the stone. Leaving it behind was the only safe option. Bringing it would be like carrying a beacon for both kinds of predators. They would leave just before dawn, in the gray hour when the night was at its weakest and the day had not yet begun. They would take Charlotte's car, hoping the element of surprise would buy them a few precious minutes. They waited in the darkness, listening to the unearthly sounds from outside. The whispers had become like the rustling of leaves in the wind, and the glowing eyes seemed to have retreated deeper into the woods, as if watching patiently. At 5:30 a.m., as the eastern sky began to shift from black to indigo, they made their move. Charlotte clutched the car keys, Mia close behind her. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a gunshot. They slipped into the garage, its silence ominous. Charlotte pressed the button for the garage door. With a deafening groan, the door began to rise. The dim light of early dawn flooded in, feeling like a violation. They scrambled into the SUV. Charlotte jammed the key into the ignition, her hand slick with sweat. The engine roared to life, its sound obscene in the morning stillness. She threw the car into reverse, and it shot out of the garage. The moment they were clear, the black SUV at the end of the driveway flashed its headlights, two blinding beams cutting through the gloom. They'd been spotted. "Hold on," Charlotte yelled. She slammed her foot on the accelerator. The Mercedes tore down the long driveway. The black SUV pulled forward, blocking their exit. A head-on confrontation was inevitable. Charlotte's heart seized. This was it. But then, something moved to their right, in the shadows of the trees. It wasn't one of the glowing eyes. It was something bigger, more solid. A massive, tall shadow, the shape of Ethan, lunged out of the woods, not at their car, but at the black SUV. It wasn't a physical attack. It was a presence, a wave of pure despair and terror so powerful that Charlotte could feel it even through the glass of the car. The driver of the SUV must have felt it too. The black vehicle swerved violently to the left, trying to avoid the non-existent phantom, its tires screaming on the asphalt. For a split second, it created an opening. It was enough. Charlotte didn't hesitate. She wrenched the steering wheel, her SUV scraping past the black vehicle's rear bumper with inches to spare, and burst onto the main road. She floored the accelerator, the engine roaring as she sped down the empty morning street. In the rearview mirror, she saw the black SUV recover. It turned and began to pursue, its headlights like the eyes of a relentless monster. They were out of the house, but they were not safe. The hunt had just begun. They were racing to meet an old man they had never met, hoping that forgotten history could save them from a future that was closing in at a terrifying speed.